This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
CAF has endorsed FIFA's plans of a 2-year World Cup and given the green light to establish the Africa Super League at its Congress in Cairo. Tonight, Sports Scene dissects these major developments in African football as we also take a tour around the continent to find out the state of sporting infrastructure. Hello and welcome to your weekly sports program that brings you all the sporting news and reviews from an African perspective. We will highlight the thrill of victory while also showing you the agony of defeat. I'm Richard Nta in Nairobi. This is Sports Scene. Put on your seatbelts, buckle up, get ready. Let's get started. Here's what's coming up in the show. We look at why Rwanda is fast becoming a destination of choice for international competitions, and concern as Zimbabwe's top sporting facilities fall into a state of disrepair. Welcome in. Just like that, Sports Scene is on the air. We'll get to those other stories in just a moment, but how about we start with football? The Confederation of African Football has backed the contentious proposal to hold the FIFA World Cup every 2 years. This followed a FIFA presentation to CAF's General Assembly in Egypt on Friday. The African football meeting discussed the organization's budget and approved the creation of the African Super League. CGTN's Adel Al-Marui was there and now reports.
CAF's General Assembly convened in the Egyptian capital Cairo to approve its first budget and set a developmental plan for African football. The assembly took place as fears of a new COVID-19 variant sweeps through the continent. New containment measures to curb the spread of the disease could soon be enforced across Africa, hitting, among others, the January African Cup of Nations finals in Cameroon.
About this new variant that is so much more transmissible, and the important thing is that it is being assessed, it is being evaluated. Some of the European countries have responded by red listing some countries. So we will be guided by the science. In the meantime, all the plans we have will proceed with all the caution and protocols for COVID-19 as we've had in the past.
CAF has finally approved the birth of a new interclub competition, the African Super League. No details about the competition have been released yet. However, it is expected to include 20 clubs in what officials say will maximize football revenues.
African competitions is only the African Cup of Nations and the World Cup qualifiers that has. But if you want improvement, you must get your major clubs to play on a regular basis. So if we have all of the big clubs on the African continent playing in a league, you are enhancing the profile of the clubs, and if it's televised on a worldwide basis, it will also put focus on both the clubs and on the players.
FIFA's boss Gianni Infantino joined this extraordinary meeting to promote for his new vision of a 48-team World Cup that is held every 2 years. He had a presentation to convince all 54 members of CAF, but he seems to have had CAF's president, Patrice Motsepe's support. Former long-serving Arsenal manager and the chief of FIFA's global football development, Arsene Wenger, presented to the Assembly benefits of a 2-year World Cup. CAF's General Assembly has not yet voted on the initiative. However, a statement from the continental body said that once studies are over, FIFA will have Africa's full support.
There is nothing like playing a big tournament in order to boost the game, in order to create unity, inclusion in a country and between countries. So to create more of these opportunities is certainly something which is crucial for the future of football all over the world. We cannot say football is global if then we exclude 80% of the world from the most important competition in the world.
The 13th CAF Extraordinary Meeting in Cairo presented to the world for the first time Togo. It's the official match ball for the Cameroon 2021 Africa Cup of Nations finals. The ball is named after a royalty outfit in the nation's northwest region
that later became the traditional dress code for special occasions. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Well, fascinating times ahead in football, I tell you. And while staying on the subject of football and tournaments, if you may recall, Egypt was the first country to host the expanded 24-team Africa Cup of Nations when it staged the 2019 edition. As Cameroon prepares to host the delayed 2021 finals in January, there are lessons it can learn from Egypt, a country with an established tradition of hosting international events. Here is CGTN's Adel Mahroui once again.
The first edition of the 24-team African Cup of Nations in 2019 was supposed to be held in Cameroon. Yet the West African nation's failure to prepare for the event on time turned out to be Egypt's fortune. The country made history by setting the organizational structure for the first expanded AFCON.
Egypt has become a reference for Africa. I traveled all over Africa as a player, and I know there's some well-developed countries, but there are many others that still lack the infrastructure needed. In Egypt, the AFCON was treated like a national project. All the government was involved. We have unique abilities and infrastructure to organize competitions, and it was why we offered to host the 2019 AFCON when Cameroon couldn't.
CAF named Egypt as hosts for the 2019 AFCON only 5 months before the competition. Yet the country managed to put a good show, beginning with the first event of the group's draw that was held by the Pyramids.
Our biggest challenge was how to stand out after the Russia World Cup. They inspired us with the fans' ID system and the tickets pass, and the organization and the security preparations to host 24 African teams. You need many stadiums, transportation, infrastructure, many organizers and translators. There are so many logistical aspects in the competition.
Egypt dedicated 6 stadiums for the matches, and for the training of teams and referees, it prepared 36 other stadiums. An entire airport terminal in Cairo was set aside to only welcome arriving teams.
Since the draw for the event, we've made hotel check-in counters inside that airport terminal. First impressions last, especially in such competitions, so players must get their luggage quickly. A special tag was made for their suitcases. Africa has changed. We now have many international players. When you get players like Sadio Mane, he will give his impression about Egypt to Liverpool, and so on. All players will do the same about Cameroon in the countries their clubs are in.
Besides putting on an entertaining showpiece, crisis management and security of the competition were crucial for Egypt, as no other African country had experience with hosting such a huge number of football delegations.
With its new 24-team setup, the Africa Cup of Nations has become the 3rd biggest international football competition in the world. In a little over a month, all Africa's eyes will turn to Cameroon, and they expect to see the country that once failed to host the event to surprise and surpass the first edition of the expanded AFCON. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Tanzanian football fans have been flocking to stadiums in record numbers in 2021, even during the peak of COVID-19 infections. The league resumed last year after 3 months of suspension. More than a year later, the sport is back at full capacity. CGTN's Daniel Kijo looks at the state of Tanzanian football.
Football is a sport millions in Tanzania love to play and watch. And while fans follow up on all top leagues in the world, things get especially exciting when local teams and arch rivals Simba and Yanga face off. In June 2020, Tanzania was one of the first countries in Africa to resume sporting activities following the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ayubu Hinjo is one of Tanzania's top sports analysts. He says the closure was a serious financial issue as well.
Just outside the stadium, you would see people selling jerseys, people selling food, ticket sales, all those things. This is people's livelihoods that were affected. The government lost tax from people getting tickets to enter stadiums, so it had truly dropped the microeconomies around the stadium.
The return of football in the country saw Azam TV resume operations as the region's top football broadcaster. The company returned to form by airing hundreds of matches from the local league as well as the world's top leagues to more than 10 countries in East and Central Africa.
By the 2020-2021 season, CAF announced the Tanzanian Premier League as the 8th best in Africa, so the presence of Azam TV has had a huge impact on African soccer.
The World Football Governing Body, FIFA, reports that COVID-19 cost global soccer $14.4 billion in 2020. Fans are happy that the footballers they love are back on the pitch.
This year we have been encouraged to go to stadiums again, to watch in small viewing centres like these. We enjoy the league.
I think the coming league, 2021-2022, the league will be really hot. God has helped us. This disease has really declined. We see teams using the transfer window well to get players from every corner.
The COVID-19 pandemic has changed conditions for football in Tanzania and around the globe dramatically. Some competitions and leagues were cancelled or postponed. But with the global vaccine rollout, it's hoped that 2022 will usher in football's full recovery. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
Well, more sports scene is on the way. We've got you covered. Here's what's ahead. We look at why Rwanda is fast becoming a destination of choice for international competitions.
So this is it. I'm just about to be shot.
Tense here. Bottles are being thrown as they do so.
There are about 3 critical bridges here in Malawi. That's one of them. We're going to cross that bridge.
As you can see behind me, police forces
who are replying with gas. Gas just came in.
Tear gas, so it's all begun now.
Divisions leading the charge into West Mosul have brought us here.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots.
This is where most of the fighting has been concentrated.
This is the front line now after 9 days of fighting.
We're about 2 to 3 kilometers from
the front line. Within clear view of this front line position.
Welcome back to Sports Scene. Thanks for sticking with us. Rwanda has become a favorite host for major continental competitions in recent years due to growth in sports infrastructure. In 2021 alone, the country has hosted 4 major continental competitions and was recently awarded hosting rights for the 2025 UCI World Championship. CGTN's Mohammed Abubakar tells us more.
Rwanda is fast becoming a choice destination for major sporting events. The last few years has seen the country's flagship cycling competition, Tour de Rwanda, upgraded to a 2.1 UCI category race, and most recently awarded the hosting rights to the 2025 UCI World Cycling Championship.
We see sports in Rwanda as we want it to be like a sports hub in Africa. We don't want only to have all the infrastructure only locally, but we want everybody outside Rwanda, outside the region, outside Africa, feel like this will serve everyone, especially attracting international competition.
The Immaculate Kigali Arena, built in 2019, has been integral in positioning Rwanda as a sporting nation in the region. The multi-purpose modern structure has been home to numerous indoor competitions since it opened its doors. The arena most recently hosted the Men's and Women's Africa Volleyball Championships, the 2021 FIBA AfroBasket, and the inaugural Basketball Africa League.
I would like to thank, specifically in this case, the President Kagame. When we have this beautiful infrastructure, world-class level, we have to feel proud of ourselves that in Africa it is possible. This is very important for the kids to start in play in these facilities.
Plans are now underway to build a sports city that will cover 35 hectares around the Kigali Arena. The major facelift will have more space for locals to train and venues that will attract more events.
The same way as you see the arena, which was built, we also want to upgrade the stadium. So we want to have this area as a sports city, to have a sports city here where everyone who feels like I want to go and do the swimming, attracting international competition in swimming. And again, we are also planning to have the Paralympic. We also want to have the cycling here in the same compound.
The Amahoro National Stadium will be at the heart of the envisioned Kigali Sports City. And now the immediate plan of action will be to revamp this facility and also expand it from a 25,000-seater to a 45,000-seater capacity. All this in a bid to make Rwanda a destination for major world sporting events. Mohamed Abubakar for CGTN, Kigali, Rwanda.
Juba International Stadium in South Sudan has received a facelift with funding from the World Football governing body FIFA, and the reconstruction of the stadium is about to be completed. The country's football association says the nation will soon be able to host CAF and FIFA matches. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
South Sudan's Football Association says the reconstruction of Juba Stadium is expected to be completed next year. And it is promising not to stop there.
We want to take similar projects across the country. This will encourage young people to play football. It will promote the game and help us as a football association.
Another new stadium has been approved for construction in Juba, with 85% of its funding to come from the Chinese government. It is expected to accommodate around 35,000 spectators. South Sudan's football team has been playing its home games in Kenya and Sudan, denying the fans opportunity to watch their team take on teams from other countries. That was because there was no internationally recognized stadium. But now South Sudan's Football Association says this facility will be ready next year, meaning all home games for the national team will be played here. The reconstruction of Juba International Stadium is funded by the World Football governing body FIFA. FIFA is investing $6 million.
We are here to develop football for both boys and girls, men and women, and this stadium will allow them to grow and to look forward to one day representing their national team playing in this stadium.
Juba International Stadium is being expanded from 2,000 to 7,000 seat capacity. It will be the biggest stadium in the country. For now, Patrick Koyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Well, the future is bright for South Sudan football, that is for sure. Speaking of stadiums and infrastructure, though, back in 2010, South Africa hosted a historic FIFA World Cup, and today the stadia that were built and upgraded remain in top condition. And that is why it is no coincidence that SAFA showed interest in hosting the FIFA Club World Cup as well as other key global events. CGTN CS Duplessis has more.
South Africa enjoys a proud history of successfully hosting global sporting events, such as rugby, cricket and football World Cups. A decade on from Africa's first FIFA World Cup, which many regard as the best yet, stadiums like the iconic FNB Stadium, or Soccer City as it is affectionately known, the venue for the opening and final in 2010, is being well maintained and governed in accordance with the city of Johannesburg.
We manage these stadia on a full financial risk basis. So that entails us looking after the venues and reporting back to the city on a monthly and a quarterly and a yearly basis on progress with maintenance and upgrading.
The Cape Town Stadium, the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban, Ellis Park in Johannesburg and the Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane continue to be well looked after and remain attractive options for hosting events even 11 years after the infrastructure and upgrades implemented by FIFA.
I think the 2010 World Cup legacy left a lasting impression, and worldwide we're still reckoned as a country of choice and venues of choice to host big events.
Many of the FIFA World Cup qualifiers involving teams from the continent have taken place in South Africa of late, without any hitches and with positive feedback from the authorities at CAF and FIFA. boosting the reputation of the Rainbow Nation globally.
We've hosted in the last 2 months a lot of the African nations we've hosted at our venues with their World Cup qualifiers. And I think we're privileged in our country, and sometimes some venue operators see that as a nuisance, but that accountability, looking over your shoulder, ensures that we've got venues, world-class venues, capable of hosting events immediately.
There's no doubt that the COVID-19 pandemic has had a massive impact on the ability for stadiums to generate revenue. But to the credit of those in charge of the stadia across South Africa, they've been well maintained. And still to this day, 11 years on from Africa's first ever World Cup, remain capable of hosting global events at the drop of a hat. CS du Plessis, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And we are not done just yet. The action continues on Sports Scene. Here's a peek at the headlines. Concern as Zimbabwe's top sporting facilities fall into a state of disrepair.
Beijing. The world's fastest skaters coming in with speed and balance.
Figure skaters showcasing their elegance and precision are expected to shine.
Intensity and power. Will ice hockey get spectators jumping out of their seats?
A sport of focus and concentration. Curling is arguably the game's most strategic event.
The 2022 Winter Games are here. Join us for all the action, only on CGTN.
Welcome back to Sports Scene. Many sports facilities in Zimbabwe are in a bad state due to poor maintenance, a situation that is directly affecting national teams. The National Sports Stadium, for instance, can no longer host international football matches, meaning any home games may have to be played on foreign soil until the stadium has been brought up to scratch.
Domestic football is back in Zimbabwe, but quality venues where it can be played are few. In the capital city, for instance, only one stadium is approved to host Premier Soccer League matches, and that one that's being used only passes the local test. The Confederation of African Football has banned the National Sports Stadium from hosting international matches because it lacks some basic facilities like bucket seats and electronic turnstiles that are minimum requirements for an international match venue. Both government and the Football Association have been held responsible.
We knew that for a very long time, and one of the crucial things is to put bucket seats in the stadium, at least to modernize it a bit, and yet with COVID and no football, there was more than a year to do so, and nothing happened. So you can blame ZIFA, but you can easily blame the Sports Ministry and the SRC as well, and ask whether they're playing their part too.
It's not just football stadiums that are in a dire state. Other facilities are a far cry from their former glory days. A veteran sports administrator I spoke to believes this is a case of the chickens coming home to roost.
Infrastructure deteriorates when it's not maintained. So over time, this takes its toll. It doesn't mean that the deterioration started yesterday. It started years ago. You can go back far to the All Africa Games in 1995. And the various facilities, some of them world class, that were put into place as an investment for those games. Some of them are now totally unusable.
There is still hope for resuscitating the crumbling facilities.
Well, it can be fixed, but it depends if the will is there. There are ideas like maybe selling naming rights to a sponsor for stadiums so that they will undergo the renovations and have naming rights. It happens in other countries. We just need that kind of thinking here because that can make a big difference.
Though it has committed to addressing the deficiencies noted by CAF at the National Sports Stadium, the government has not given timelines when the work will be completed. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
And now let's talk a bit of rugby, where long-serving Kenya Sevens captain Andrea Omondi was honored with a dinner in Nairobi after hanging his international boots at 35. Omondi will now play for local club KCB RFC as he winds down his glittering career. CGTN's Joy Karuki Juma has more.
Andrew Omondi has brought a stellar 16-year Kenya Sevens international career to an end. as a nation paid tribute to one of the illustrious sons that has placed the country on the global sevens map. The pillar of support for the retiring skipper came from much closer home.
It's been an awesome journey, looking at the many achievements that Andrew has been able to bring home. It's been also a roller coaster of emotions, seeing him on the field. You don't know at what minute he's going to pick an injury, at what minute we are going to win the game. So it has been a roller coaster of emotions, but I'm grateful he did his best.
Amonde's finest hour with the Kenya Sevens team, famously known as Shujaa, was lifting the Singapore Sevens title in the World Sevens Series. That moment, he admits, will last a lifetime.
There are good memories that we've made with the boys. I think the biggest one that will remain with us for a very long time is winning Singapore in 2016. I think that was a good summary of what we've been doing for many years.
Amonde led Kenya Sevens to the Rio 2016 and Tokyo 2020 Summer Games as the sport joined the Olympics bouquet. His proudest moment was carrying Kenya's flag into the stadium during the opening ceremony of the Tokyo Games. Those he leaves behind with Shujaa tell of a man who commanded respect from his peers.
I think I'm proud for the fella, seeing how far he's come from. Like I remember when I joined the team back in 2009, 2010. Andrew was part of the team then, but I would say he was not the Andrew we know today. As in, he has really come from afar, skill-wise, leadership-wise. He's really come from far. So to see what he has achieved, what he worked to until what he has right now, I think for me, I feel proud for him. I feel like I've also been part of his journey. So it's a moment of pride for all of us and for the whole of Kenya Rugby.
During a dinner hosted in his honor in Nairobi, those present paid homage to a man who has achieved more than he could have ever dreamed of. Beyond talk of success, the night was also filled with fun interactions, games and music.
This is a day that I didn't think would come. Seeing all these people here is, number one, a sign that there's so many people who are supporting us, who are supporting Andrew.
I feel good and I feel great for my son. This is an achievement. He started very humbly, and for him to reach this far, he has put a lot of effort on his career.
I feel so good, I feel so happy, and I'm very grateful for the people who actually thought of this. He has worked so hard with the rugby team, both as a captain and a team player, and the achievement they have made are so good that if you have thought of doing this for him, we really appreciate.
Amonde retired from international duty after the Tokyo Olympics. After this formal goodbye to Shujaa, he will now spend the sunset days of his decorated career with local champions, KCB RFC. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
What a wonderful career, and it is still going. Great guy, great story. Keep an eye out for Andrew Amonde. Well, that's it for this edition of Sports Scene. Remember, you can send us your feedback to the contacts on the screen and follow us on digital media platforms. Thanks for watching. We leave you with images of some of the sporting highlights as Beijing held an evening gala to mark the 100 days countdown to the 2022 Winter Paralympics earlier this week on Wednesday. Let's take a look.